Alright, so today I'm going to be talking about offshore drilling. And if you've ever been to Santa Barbara, you'll notice all the big offshore oil rigs out there. And my experience being there, I noticed that the water is a little murky. It's not as clean as the water, say, down like San Diego, where there are no offshore oil rigs. So my proposition is that offshore drilling should be stopped. And I'm going to prove this by my second claims that offshore oil rigs pose danger to the surrounding environment. Offshore drilling is very risky, and offshore drilling is not efficient. So on to my first claim that offshore oil rigs pose danger to the surrounding environment. Pollutants leaking into the ocean are harmful to the marine wildlife. Offshore rigs dump tons of drilling fluid, metal cuttings, and toxic metals such as lead, chromium, and mercury, which are harmful to the fish and other wildlife species. The drilling fluid releases toxic chemicals that can affect the marine life. According to akmarine.org, zones around oil platforms had sediments with higher levels of contaminants and toxicity, reduced levels of abundance, species diversity, genetic diversity, and reproductive success. Other studies by MMS showed long-term sublethal effects on plankton organisms, which are vital food for fish like salmon or whales or other fish species. The seabed has also been recorded to alter or hurt juvenile forms of crab from the dumping of the drill cuttings. As well, oil rigs attract birds at night with all the big lights, so the birds will fly over there and they'll hit the steel beams, or they'll fly directly into the flares, and it'll cause death to the birds. And these flares also produce black carbon from the burning of the fossil fuels, which also contributes to global warming. And on to my second claim that offshore drilling is a very risky business. The dangerous chemicals and machinery can be harmful to workers on the platforms. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, oil rig workers experience higher than average rates of non-fatal injuries. Carol D. Lennick and Mark Hoffman from the Washington Post report that 1,298 accidents on rigs and platforms were reported from 2006 to 2009 in the Gulf, as well as 30 deaths. These workers often work 12 or more hour shifts, and sometimes in very harsh weather like hurricanes and all the rain and stuff. And exhaustion, this plus exhaustion can increase the chance of an accident or even death. Offshore oil rigs can also cause great catastrophe. For example, you all know the Gulf oil spill in 2010, and on April 20th, an explosion occurred, killing 11 people. By July 15th, which is about 87 days, 4.9 million barrels of oil leaked into the Gulf, which is about 200 million gallons. And about 30% of that ended up on the seafloor, damaging different corals and plants and animals that lived on the floor. And 16,000 miles of coastline was affected by the spill, and over 8,000 animals reported dead just 6 months after the spill. And the company BP, which on the oil rig, was billed around $56 billion in fines and cleanup costs, and President Obama created a $20 billion spill response fund. And this is a lot of money that could have been going to beneficial programs to benefit the nation, but it was going to clean up the mistake that the company made. And on to my this leads to my third claim that offshore drilling is not efficient. It won't lower gas prices for a long time, and when it does, it wouldn't change by much. The Energy Information Administration projects that expansion in offshore drilling wouldn't lower gas prices until 2030. The U.S. Contribution to the global market of oil is just not significant enough that we would give an alter it, because the price is based on a global concept. And the best way to consume less oil is to improve energy efficiency, such as electric cars, cars with better gas mileage, using cleaner fuels, and more public transportation, or riding your bike or walking. Investing in more efficient methods could save a lot more oil and money, and this new and upcoming field can create jobs, save money from purchasing the oil from other companies, and reduce air pollution. Thus benefits the nation as a whole. So in conclusion, stated that offshore drilling is hurtful to the environment, has great risks, and is not efficient. Therefore, it must be stopped. I hope my argument persuaded you. Thank you.
All right, Trevor, the first problem is that the proposition's a claim of policy, so instead of dealing with a claim of fact and being limited to the disputes over what is true, you've invited a whole variety of other issues to be discussed. For example, what would the consequence be of stopping offshore oil drilling? Later on in your argument, you talk about why it's not particularly efficient, but that sounds like it's talking about expanding as opposed to whether or not it is efficient for us to be getting the oil out of the various places that we get it in the oceans currently. Your argument's talking about future expansion wouldn't produce an effect on oil prices until 15 or 16 years from now. That's talking about the future expansion. What would contraction of the oil processes that we're going through right now, what kind of impact would that have? There's no numerical comparison. There's no information on that. I don't think there's a lot of doubt that on the second point, that the job is dangerous and that there are potential risks involved. So there's not a lot of controversy there, but we have no comparative data to show how much more dangerous it is than a whole variety of other things. You mentioned, for instance, environmental dangers on one point. There may, in fact, be environmental dangers that are associated with just about any energy-producing activity, or, for example, some of the alternatives that you talk about at the end. The end kind of has this whole list of ideas that might fix the problem if we take, ride our bikes, use public transportation, find alternative fuels, all those sorts of things. But there's no discussion of what the consequences of doing any of those things are, what the costs are doing any of those things are. And there are a variety of costs, not just the employment of people on the oil rigs, for instance, but the impact of rising prices might have if we were to withdraw that oil that is available from the marketplace. And I think that there's plenty of controversy here, but you're only talking about a very surface-limited part of the controversy, and it needs to be developed a lot more. The contents are nicely laid out for us. I thought that you made the points relatively clear and easy to follow. There's a little bit too much reading in the presentation. All right.